is really looking at, the combination of all of those webinars and, the ultimate residential lighting tips. And it's coming from Sally, who is the owner and creative director of John Cullen Lighting, Sally Story, who has a wealth of experience in the lighting industry. She was or is responsible for really bringing lighting to the forefront of interiors and making it something that people are more aware of, and how it can change and impact our spaces as part of the architectural and interiors world. So really excited that she can join us for this final webinar, and I'm going to hand over to Sally now to run through the presentation. Sally, I'll try and take you through the slides as best I can, and if I'm not keeping up with you, just give me a little prompt and I'll push it on, or I can go backwards as well, whatever you need.
Thank you very much for that splendid introduction, and how frightening to be given that credibility. But anyway, I'm very lucky to love what I do, and I've put together some ideas. They are rarely taken from what I think is important in light, and you'll also find that they're relevant to all rooms in the house, and most of those rooms have already been introduced to you in the previous seminars. So I'm just taking the key ones that whatever room in the house or garden are important to remember. One of the things I just thought I'd start with is it's really important, because lighting designers work with light and shadow, is to think of what to light or not to light. Anyway, the first slide I just wanted to take was, you can see in this exterior scheme, there's a soft uplight to the first story, giving emphasis to the entrance, which is uplit, which you suddenly see the double volume. And then the key thing in this was actually the screen on the right-hand side, and which also is reproduced by being backlit from the interior straight ahead. And what I rather loved is the fact of what to light was the low level of the building, to backlight the screen, to not light the tree it's in silhouette, and to delineate the water so you don't fall into it. But it's knowing what to light and what not to light is important. Equally, in this totally different garden, there's this sunken pool, and the idea was to contain the lighting within this area. So what you see is the fact that we've purposefully not lit the water, because the idea is that we're playing with reflections. So we've also lit the box balls. You can see this is lit from one side, so you get this play of light and shadow. And what we wanted was their reflection in the water. And it's understanding, again, if we'd lit them all the way around, you wouldn't have been able to differentiate them going straight ahead. So the small Hampton here lit each one and was so discreet in its green colour that during the day you hardly noticed it. Again, to light or not to light. This was full of niches, and the idea was, rather than light every single niche, in which case there would have been uniform light, was actually to play with lighting alternative ones. It then becomes almost like a pattern, like a chess set. And the idea being that in the ones that were not lit, you could pile them up with tea towels or things or books that would come right to the front. And the more special objects will eventually go in the ones that are lit. Again, a very simple idea. This is a downlit 2 chairs by a TV screen. And in a way, there was no room for table lamps, but it lacked something. So by lighting the shelves, you've immediately created that soft ambience. And the backlight of those shelves gives you that indirect light, just like a lamp would. So you've added that little bit of layer, and you've decided to light something that when it wasn't lit, didn't give enough emphasis to the room. Here, 2 staircases, very contrasting. The client was very keen to light this sculptural staircase, and this is looking down, and you can see we've used miniature cazalas in the skirting on every other tread. And we decided to play with light and shadow by only lighting every other tread. By total contrast, there's this cast concrete stairs on the right-hand side, and how to light those. It wanted a much more minimalist approach. And so the staircase landings were floated off the back wall, and a linear light source was used to light up and down. And it was the reflected light off that wall that then lit the stairs. consider materials. So we've decided now what to light and what not to light, and now we're considering materials. I think the material palette is so important to the lighting designer. Here we've got three very strong materials. We've got glass, blackened steel, and oak. So the glass itself seems to hold light, and you get that feeling of the honeycomb. And the oak is lit by recessed cazalas on the inside edge, lighting across the oak treads and giving a glow onto the wall, that blackened steel wall. So materials like glass. Glass is often best lit when backlit. Sometimes we might do it with a backlit shelf, and I can see some in Luke's home over there behind him. The other times was this was in a space where they wanted it to feel almost like daylight, to create a window, and the glass bottles, which is this collection from a pharmacy. But what was unusual was the top shelf has actually got ultraviolet light on it because it made the phosphor within the bottles glow green. Texture and materials. So materials rarely respond to light, and also does texture. This is the same bit of texture. It actually comes from our lighting studio. And you can see one with ambient lighting, you hardly notice the texture on the left-hand side. You then see in the center, you see offset, a linear strip, probably about 150 mil off the texture. And you begin to see the slight ripples, but it's a much flatter light because the lighting has come straight at it. And then the final one shows uplight, where you have close lighting, close to a texture, and it then totally highlights the waves. And this would work whether downlit or uplit. And in the next slide, I began to show you what helps you decide how to light it. So you can see this brick vaulted walkway was dramatically lit by the individual uplights, and they were almost like candles going along. And on the right-hand side, you see this open staircase. Stair lights would have been glaring. So the idea was, as it had a pitch ceiling, was that the uplights on the stairs, which also had a glare card to minimize the glare as you walked up the stairs, grazed up the old stone walls and gave indirect light back to the stairs themselves. Again, on the next slide, you see the idea of texture. And one of the things I like is getting that transition between inside and outside. You see, you come through a small doorway that opens, which you can see the first part of it is outside, and then it comes inside. And we've exaggerated the texture of the walls, and this contrasts rather nicely with the plainness of the white interior. And in an external scheme, you can see we've played the same game. And this is why I say that so much of lighting is taking ideas and can work both inside and outside. You can see the rustic, rugged wall in the textures of the blocks behind the sofa. And these have been uplit. But there's a smooth wall on the left-hand side, which we've actually lit by lighting through the foliage, and you get more of a play of patterns against it. And here was an art piece. Again, the value of this art piece is the fact that it's molded and shaped, and the direction in which you light it will change the way it looks. And it's all about the play of light and shadow. Or very simply, in shelves. Here you see the idea of the backlighting of shelves. We saw it in the pharmacy, but here it's a much more subtle effect where you can see the glass bottles showing through. But what was interesting was, this was a matte surface. It was a material surface behind. And what we wanted to do was give depth by emphasizing that material surface. And on the right-hand side, we have a gloss surface. So on the gloss surface, it's very important that you have a diffuser because you would see any reflection of any dots. On the left-hand side, you can actually use a bare LED if one wanted to get more direct light because of the matte surface, there's no reflection. And here we have marble in bathrooms. Polished marble can be the worst nightmare when you're lighting it in order that you get reflected light that you don't want to see. So here we've actually floated the mirror, we've indirectly lit this, so you get this soft glow against the marble.